Hello, welcome back. As you've probably worked out, I'm back in the woods today. Not the same area I was in the last day where I cooked up lunch. That was a new woodland to me. It's an absolutely great place to explore and a great place for me to have my lunch. But I've come to a more familiar woods to me this time. I'm back in Donegal. This is a place I've come loads of times and a place I've brought you guys a couple of times as well. Last week when I was on my day off, I did a wee bit of additional exploring in the woods here, and I found 2 or maybe even 3 cracking spots for a woodland camp that I'm pretty excited about it. One of them's almost perfect. It's not actually where I am today. It's a wee bit dark there for filming today, so I've brought you to one of the second places that I found. In that last video I mentioned that I had something to try out and to show off, and that's why I was looking for a woodland camp, and that is my Nightcat Hammock Tent. So today is the first time since I got it that I've had good enough weather to get out in the woods and actually try it out, set it up for the first time. So this isn't a full review or anything like that. It's just a first look, setting it up in the different configurations and seeing what I think of it. Now, before I do anything else, I should say that I actually reached out to Nightcat and asked them would they be interested in me trying out some of their products for them and giving them some feedback, and they've sent me this hammock tent free of charge. There's no preconditions or anything like that, and I'm not being paid to do this review or any of the reviews that I do on it, but they have told me that once I've tried it out and given them some feedback that I can hold on to it and keep it for free. So this will be my honest and heartfelt opinions on what it's actually like. But I have to say, I'm really intrigued. It looks like a really interesting piece of kit, and I like the multifunctionality of it before you even get going on it. So anyway, let's get it unpacked and see what it's like. This is actually my very first look at this hammock tent, apart from seeing pictures of it and seeing the promotional videos that Nightcat have done themselves. I've watched a couple of other guys' YouTube videos as well just to see what it's like, but I haven't actually had it out of the bag at all yet. I've been trying to contain my excitement until I could get a proper look at it and set it up properly and show you guys exactly what it's like straight out of the bag. All I've done is I've taken it out of the plastic wrapping. There is a carry handle on the end of it, and the main zip runs up the top of it, so when you set it down it's very easy to get everything in and out of it, I would assume. Very similar to the Helm Compact 1 that I have as well. The one thing that has intrigued me and I'm impressed by is on the outside of the bag there are these series of little daisy chain loops, a bit like a molly system you get in some military bags. Just think that's a nice touch because it enables you to strap it onto the outside of a rucksack if you don't have space to put it inside, or if you're worried about it being wet and getting the inside of your bag wet. So yeah, nice touch. So let's get it open and see what's inside the bag itself. So some instructions in the user manual inside. I'll be a typical man and put that aside. It's all rolled up together in a very neat package. So this is the actual waterproof outer part of the hammock tent. So I'm going to set that aside for the moment as well. Got a bag with a couple of poles in it, and I'll show you what those are for in a little while. In here you've got your, just take them out and show you it. So it comes with its own hammock loops there supplied. You get 2 of them, one for each end. A couple of guy lines, I'll show you what they're for later on as well. And 2 pegs, just the 2 pegs come with it. But from what I've seen in the way it's set up, you don't really need much more than that. First feeling, the pegs are quite flimsy, they're very light. I'd say they're quite easily bent, but they don't have a huge significance in the structure and the setting up of the hammock tent. So, but I probably would replace those with something a bit stronger later on. And then this is the actual hammock itself. So you've got your hammock, your pegs, guy lines, hammock ties, your poles, and your waterproof outer. Not an awful lot to it really. Nice and simple. I have a feeling this should be quick and easy to set up as well. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set it up first of all as a ground tent, and then we'll take it from there and see what happens. That's the first part of it set up. That was actually very, very simple. It's just 2 pegs, one at each end, and 2 pre-curved poles that go through these sleeves that are stitched onto the main body of the tent. The first section is completely mesh. It's just there as a bug net. It's not there designed to give you any kind of protection from the elements whatsoever, but then it doesn't pretend to do anything like that. The one thing that I did find a little bit odd with it, but then this is the nature of the design as well, I suppose, is the bottom of the internal section is very, there's a lot of loose fabric, but then it's going to be used as a hammock as well, so that fabric has to be there to allow it to stretch and be comfortable when you're lying on it as a hammock. So that's kind of expected, to be honest. What I do like about this, because I could see this being useful as a bug net under maybe a more traditional tarp in a woodland camp setting, if it's a dry, warm, well, not even dry, but just a warm, mild evening, and you want to be a wee bit more exposed to the elements, maybe a wee bit more exposed to the sky and so on, but you're concerned about bugs in the middle of the night, that you could actually lie inside this and it would keep you protected from any of the creepy crawlies that you don't want crawling all over your face in the middle of the night. I suppose it's a bit like a bivvy bag in that kind of sense, like an insect bivvy bag. One thing that I do really like about it though, and I noticed this on other videos that I've watched, it's actually a double zip as well, so it can be open from either end, but the zip is on this front section of it here, which makes it particularly useful when it's a hammock, obviously, for getting in and out, but as a tent this makes it very useful as well. The biggest problem I have with the design of bivvies is actually getting in and out of them. It's a bit of a gymnastic contortionist event trying to get in and out of a bivvy, especially if the weather's wet. So this is a lot more practical to get in and out. So I'll just open it up and I'll show you what it's like inside as well. This could be embarrassing. I'll pre-warn you about this. There's not a lot of space inside here, and getting in and out of it is quite restricted. So if I flash anything at the camera, I apologise in advance. So I didn't want to get in completely just because I don't want to be taking my boots on and off too many times. It's not that difficult to get in and out of it actually, even though it's very, very low to the ground. It's on the ground, talking shite as usual, but anyway, it's not that difficult to get in and out of it. That front opening mesh makes things very, very simple. It is very low to the ground. That was the one thing I really noticed whenever I put it up at first. The mesh is quite low. When you're lying in it, there's not much space between your face and where the actual mesh is. And obviously if you're lying this on the ground, you're going to have to put some kind of sleeping mat in as well. So depending on the thickness of your sleeping mat, you could have maybe 4 or 5 inches. You're going to be lying very, very close to the mesh. Now, saying that, the mesh is incredibly thin, and I was just lying back here and I was looking up into the trees, and you could barely see the mesh at all. So it's probably not that invasive. I didn't find it claustrophobic. I don't know what other people would be like, and it'll be interesting to see what I think once I put the waterproof cover on. Does that change my feelings on that? One thing which is a little bit of a pain, and again I'd seen this mentioned in other videos where I watched it, is there's no way to, when you have this door open, there's no way to roll it up, and there's no way to permanently put it out of your way. There's a couple of nice features inside it as well, which would make it very comfortable to stow your gear. There's a pocket at either end. I'll probably show you this when I have it up as a hammock. It'll be a bit easier to see it then. But there's a pocket at either end to stow small items, and there is a hanging loop at either end as well. So if you wanted to hang a small lantern or a small light, even I suppose if you were in the tent and you wanted to string a line between the two just to hang different bits and pieces when you're inside the hammock, that's a very useful feature as well. So I'm going to zip it back up again. I'm going to put on the outer cover and see what it looks like with that on. So that's it set up with the rain cover on. I opted to go for it in the kind of olive green colour. It comes in a few different colours. There's a camo colour, and I think there's quite a bright orange colour. I'm not a big fan of camo, which is why I went for the olive green colour. Here in the woods today, it blends in quite well. It's incredibly stealthy whenever you put the cover on it. Very low to the ground, so if you are into stealth camping and you're looking for a way to blend into your environment, stay comfortable, keep bugs away, and keep away from keep the rain off you, then this is going to work really well for you. And unlike normal tunnel tents, as I said before, it's got the opening here on the front of it rather than at one end, and avoids those embarrassing trying to crawl into it in the middle of the night when you get out for a pee, or even just trying to crawl into it full stop like most bivvy tents are. I'm going to open it up and just see how much space is in it and see if it feels claustrophobic now with the rain cover on rather than just the net covering. So opening the rain cover is very similar to opening the mesh inside. It's not quite as simple. There is a zip up each side. Now it is a double-sided zip, so you can open it from the inside as well. And unlike the mesh doorway, there are two toggles, one at each end, and a little loop inside, which allows you to roll it up and stow it out of the way. I found that a bit of a faff, to be honest. It would be much better if there was a third toggle in the centre and a loop inside to catch that as well. What I found was, because I have the top cover stretched out quite a lot to try and get as much tension on the rain cover as possible, that it's pulling it out at one end and it's falling down loose. So in the end up, what I just did was I flipped it over the top and just left it like that. But listen, I think if you're going to use this as a tent, you'll be using it more as an emergency tent, just somewhere to get your head down and get out of the rain. If you didn't have trees to set it up as a hammock. So I think its main design is to be used as a hammock, and the tent option is just an option. It is just that, it is an option. So I think most of the design of this has gone into it being a hammock. But saying that, it's a very functional tent if you needed it, you wanted to be somewhere low profile, stealthy, out of the way, or even if you were just in a situation where you couldn't set it up as a hammock and you needed to get your head down for the night. What I was impressed inside is the space between the mesh and the outer rain cover is quite high. The tent poles are holding it up out of the way, and all the seams in the rain cover are taped. So I wouldn't have any concerns or worries that if you had some heavy rain in the middle of the night, that you're going to get wet inside the main part of this tent. And I'm sure that's going to be applicable as well whenever it's set up as a hammock, because it's the same configuration, keeping the mesh and the rain cover separate. So that's it set up as a tent on the ground. Far from perfect as a tent, but then something that's designed to do two things at the same time is never going to be as perfect as each of them either way. So yeah, I would say I would probably give it 7 or 8 out of 10 as a tent, but not as a main tent. Only having 2 pegs to peg it out, and I don't know how it would perform in windy weather, but in a situation like this in a forest which is quite protected, it's perfect that kind of way. Don't know what it'd be like in the top of a hill now, but sure, listen, that's something that might be worth fun trying out. Maybe in a still evening, maybe in the summertime when it's not going to be quite as cold, this could be a useful one just to throw in the bag and take out for a mountain camp or a summit camp of some sort. But anyway, listen, stop talking about it as a tent now. Time to get it set up as a hammock. This is going to be great fun. I have never ever set up a hammock in my entire life. I've never even lay in a hammock. So getting this set up is going to be a bit of a learning curve. So it's 3 o'clock. I've got about 4 hours of daylight left. So hopefully I'll get this set up and get back to you and show you what it's like as a hammock. So that's it set up as a hammock, and it actually wasn't too difficult. I surprised myself how easy it was, and I would say with a little bit of practice it'll get easier. One thing I've done wrong is I have picked 2 trees that are much too close together. I had to wrap the straps around the tree a couple of times, so that's a bit of a bodge job. And to be honest, I was a wee bit wary getting into it the first time to see would they actually hold my weight, but I've been in and out of it now about 3 or 4 times, and it's actually surprisingly easy to get in and out of it. Again, I'm wary getting into it properly because I've got my boots on me and I don't want to leave it clattered in muck. I mentioned right back at the very beginning of the video when I was talking about what was in the bag, I mentioned there was 2 guy lines and 2 pegs. These are pretty important when it comes to setting it up as a hammock. Because you've got the poles going over the top, it's a bit top heavy. If you don't use the 2 pegs and the 2 guy lines, what happens is the hammock has a habit of flipping right over. It's a bit disconcerting when you see it happening, and I was a wee bit worried that when I'm lying in the hammock that the guy lines would be a bit restrictive and so on, but they're a very thin bungee cord, and all they're there doing is just to stabilize the hammock, just to stop it from flipping around. They're not weight bearing and they're not restrictive whatsoever. So yeah, I'm quite impressed. I was surprised myself how much I like the sensation of lying in it and just gently rocking and just looking up through the trees. This part of the woodland that I'm in is got quite a lot of birch trees in it, and although they've lost some of their leaves now, they still have quite a bit, so it's just nice just lying in the hammock gazing up at the sky. If it was a nice evening and I was camping outside in the middle of the summer or something like that, and I knew there was going to be no rain, maybe in a bit of a dry spell, I can really see the attraction of lying in that with no tarp, no cover, anything like that, just gazing up through the bug net at the stars in the sky. And I just can't imagine what it's like waking up on a beautiful sunny morning and just gazing out through that and looking around the woodland, looking around the forest. It must be absolutely amazing. So I'm really looking forward now to the summertime to get to do that. So yeah, I'm going to put the rain cover on it now and just show you what it's like with the rain cover on. And I have a feeling that although it's very noticeable now with the black hammock against the trees and so on, I have a feeling it's going to be very stealthy again with the green cover on it. So that's it fully set up then. I'm not overly happy with how it's set up, but I think that's down to how I've set it up rather than any design on it. The rain cover's not as taut across the top as what I would have expected, especially having seen how taut it was whenever it was sitting on the ground. And even when I got into the hammock, it didn't stretch it enough. And I think just simply what's happened is that because I have it set up between the two trees, too close to the trees, I'm not able to stretch the rain cover out far enough on the carabiner clips to stretch it out taut. So if I had the tree set about another 1.5 meters probably apart, so it does require trees quite far apart to get it set up. I'm very impressed with how the rain fly goes together. On each end there are little poppers, little poppers, so you're able to close the tent up down along the edge, so you've got no loose flapping material, and that just stops the rain from blowing up underneath. The rain fly clips on at the back, and then when you put it over the top, it hooks on to the ends of the peg of the little poles that go through the hoops overhead. So all in all, a very, very neat, very tidy design. I think I'm going to have to put it up probably at least once, if not twice more, until I'm sure what I'm doing. God forbid I might have to actually read the instructions, but no, I'm not going to resort to that. But no, I think once I've put it up a second time at least, I'll have a bit more idea what I'm doing, and I think if I get a bit more distance between the trees, then it would be nice and taut across the top. So that's the work all done for now. I've brought my stove and my kettle with me, so I'm gonna make a cup of tea, have a sandwich, and I'll give you my final thoughts on what I think of this Nightcat tent hammock. Right then, final thoughts. So I think the secret's in the name. It's a Nightcat Hammock Tent, and I think primarily it's designed as a hammock, and I think it's very, very useful as a hammock. It's got a lot of good features. It seems like a very comfortable hammock to lie in, and I think the mesh inner and then the rain cover over the outside is a really good design. As a tent, it's not great. Okay, it's very basic, it's very minimal. I think its main design is that if you're somewhere where you were intending to set it up as a hammock and for whatever reason you couldn't set it up, then in a pinch you could use it as a tent. And I think in a situation like that, it's good. It's not great, but it's good. As a hammock though, I think it's pretty good. What I do like about it is that I love the hoop design. I really do like that. It takes the mesh up out of your face, and whenever you're lying in the hammock, you've got tons and tons of space all around you. I've seen some very expensive brands of hammocks that have poles that lift the tarp away from the hammock itself, and I'm not sure how or what they do to take the mesh away from your face and so on, but those poles are very simple and they work very, very well. I suppose the best designs are simple and do work well. So in that case, yes, it works very, very well that way. I think it would, so obviously it comes with an integrated rain cover, and I struggled to get it set up right a wee bit today. I think if it was set up properly, it would be very good. It would work really, really well. Where that limits you though is if it's a rainy evening and you need somewhere to cook and you need somewhere to put your gear, then the rain cover only covers the sleeping area of the hammock. The mesh inner can be used in conjunction with a traditional tarp setup very, very well, and I think that's probably where it would be extremely useful. I think I would use the rain cover if it was a dry evening and then I was worried about rain overnight, but I would need to make sure, or you would need to make sure that you bring some kind of rain cover to keep your gear dry during the night, because there's nowhere to put that inside the hammock whenever you're sleeping in it. Would I recommend this? Yeah, I think I do recommend it, but it would depend on who you are. If you are an experienced hammock camper, well, if you're an experienced hammock camper, you're probably not going to be looking to buy another hammock, but your own existing setup is probably better than this. However, if you're someone like me who's looking to experiment with hammock camping, you're not sure what it's like, am I going to like it, am I not going to like it, and you want something that's reasonably inexpensive but good value to get you started and up and running, then I think the Nightcat Hammock Tent is perfect for that. Couple of things just to watch out for. If you are going to use this as a hammock, you need some kind of insulation underneath you. You lose a lot of heat to cold air lying directly on a hammock. I didn't put any kind of insulation on here tonight. The traditional way to do it is an under blanket, and I've seen a lot of people using just their insulated mat underneath them in the hammock. I think the first time I'm going to sleep out, I'm going to try it that way. Well, I don't have an under blanket anyway. I see Nightcat now sell an under blanket, which is good as well, and if you are considering buying this to use it primarily as a hammock, I would recommend that you get the under blanket to go with it too. I think I'll put prices up on the screen here, but the package, well, here we go. This is the price for the hammock tent on its own, and this is the price if you buy the hammock tent and the under blanket together. If you are unsure whether you're going to be able to use this as a hammock and you think you might end up sleeping on the floor and using it as a tent, then you are going to need to bring a sleeping mat with you. An under blanket is no good on the ground. So it'd be interesting to see when I take us out for a sleep the first time how a sleeping mat works inside it. So as a first look, I have to say I'm very, very impressed so far. I can see loads and loads of great features in it. Not too many negative points, and any of the negative points were more to do with how I set it up wrong, I think. So overall I'm very, very impressed, and I'm looking forward to getting it out for a proper camp. It's October here now. The weather's going to get darker and it's going to get colder and it's going to get wetter, unfortunately, so I don't see me getting out for a hammock tent any time before the late springtime. However, this spot I'm in here is absolutely perfect for a tent camp as well, and I'm hoping to get back into this spot before the end of the winter and do a woodland camp, maybe even light a fire and cook up my dinner outside. It's it's close to home. It's only a 5-minute walk from where I park, and it's only a 5 to 10 minute drive from the house. So if I decide I need to bail in the middle of the night, then I'm okay. Anyway, it's just starting to rain here now, so I'm going to quickly throw the last of my tea into me, and I'm going to say thank you for following along in this video. I hope it was of use to you. If you're considering getting into hammock camping, or you're thinking about buying one of these Nightcat hammock tents, then I hope that was of good use to you, and I'll see you next time.